Hyun-soo has his hand loosely placed on Ji-won's neck as if threatening to or maybe even considering the prospect of strangling her. Ji-won, in turn, has a hand on Hyun-soo's arm, and another balled up and resting on his chest, as if trying to push him away or beat on his chest. The hand on Hyun-soo's arm could imply a lack of trust, and that seems to be a more plausible reason when compared to her acting in defense. I say this because, although Hyun-soo's hand is close to Ji-won's neck, he's not actually strangling her. He might just like to rest his hand there. It's not uncommon, especially in that particular place. His hand is not really directly on her neck, it's on the junction between her neck and her shoulder, to be more accurate. Moving on, the angle in which the photo is tilted makes Hyun-soo tower over Ji-won, which could imply a dominance or power difference. Lastly, the glaring observation I'm sure everyone has been shouting at me to point out. The blood on Hyun-soo. It's splattered on his hands and shirt. While in contrast, Ji-won is wearing a pristine white blouse with no even a ketchup stain. Hyun-soo is tainted with blood while Ji-won other is pure. I don't think this is purely about Hyun-soo being a killer, since Ji-won would have undoubtedly had to injure someone in her line of work. I think it's more so about the situations in which they've had to hurt people. So far, Hyun-soo has hurt people in order to threaten them and instill fear into them. While, presumably, everyone Ji-won might have injured was bad people she was tasked with stopping, for the greater good. Or the blood could be a symbolic representation of how Ji-won and Hyun-soo are seen by others. People see Hyun-soo as a killer, while they see Ji-won as someone good and working for the law. If we go with that concept, their poses could also play into it. If someone were to hear a vague and superficial description of both characters and be told that they are in a relationship, most would assume that Ji-won is the victim and Hyun-soo is forcing her into the relationship. I really like the idea of these two posters, mainly because of the contrast they provide. In this photo, they're in much the same position, but instead of the tense and dangerous atmosphere the other poster had, this one feels intimate and affectionate. Ji-won's hands are still on Hyun-soo's chest and arm, but the one on his arm looks like it's caressing Hyun-soo instead of holding him back from strangling her. And the one on his chest is much more relaxed, as if they're just to be closer to him or to feel his warmth. As for Hyun-soo, his position hasn't changed at all, though his arm seems more relaxed. I think this could imply that deep down, even though he thought everything about the identity of Hee-sung that he adopted, as a father and husband, was nothing but a facade, in reality it held some truth. At least to some extent. The lighting is also much warmer. Their posture is more relaxed as well. Their heads are also tilted in opposite directions as if getting ready for a kiss. Also, and I don't know if this is completely right since I can't see it properly, but instead of looking into each other's eyes, like they did in the other poster, they're looking at each other's lips, which also points towards a kiss. However, their expressions are almost completely shadowed, which, in my eyes, could imply that this happy and fond moments are nothing but a shadow of their relationships since they found out the truth. Like this was now all in the past and they could no longer share such moments. Or, that although they still act like this, it's now void of meaning and emotion. As if it's all just an act, they're just going through the motions. Perhaps they're doing it for their daughter, but that's beside the point. Going back to the statement about them looking at each other's lips, maybe, since this is just an act which has lost all meaning and passion, their relationship is now purely physical to them. Unlike in the first poster, where although they looked like they were about to kill each other, they were still looking into each other's eyes deeply, as if communicating their thoughts and emotions without words. This is the last poster. In this one, they're sitting at a table, his time, Ji-won is higher up, which gives the impression of her being the one with power in this situation. The handcuffs, however, imply that they're on equal grounds. Or on the same boat if you will. The handcuffs also imply that Ji-won and Hyun-soo are linked together with a bond hard to escape. The handcuffs were most likely chosen due to Ji-won's occupation, but if I were to assume something far-fetched, I'd say it could also imply that although escaping their shackles would be difficult, it would not be impossible. It would just require the right key. In this case, it might be finding the accomplice. Also, and this is more straightforward, the handcuffs insinuate criminal activity, and since both of them are chained, it could mean both of them have done something punishable by law. Or, since the chains could belong to Ji-won, it could mean she bound her husband to her. Now, although it may seem like Ji-won is the one dominating in the situation, seeing as she's the one higher up and the main element, which is the handcuffs, is one associated with her. Their location is associated with Hyun-soo. They're in his workshop. I tried to look around and spot something that might add to this theory of mine. However, I couldn't make anything out. Plus, I'm unfamiliar with most of the tools. Now, for possibly the most important part, Ji-won is clutching Hyun-soo's wrist. I can't tell much from their expression, except that they both seem pretty serious and somber. It doesn't give much to go off of, though. However, if we go back to their hands. From my perspective, it looks like Hyun-soo was reaching for Ji-won, possibly her face, and she stopped him. Which again, would imply anger or distrust from Ji-won. I say he's reaching for her face because his hand is loosely balled up, as if to caress her cheek. From her position, it almost looks like Ji-won is interrogating Hyun-soo, or even just talking to him but then getting frustrated and slamming her hand down on the table. Hyun-soo's other hand is also on the table. I don't really know if that's important, but it looks like he's mirroring her movement. I've never really tried analyzing a show's posters before, but I was hoping I could find some hints relating to the plot this time. Plus, I have to wait like 4 more days for episode 9, and I need to preoccupy myself with something because my mind is running wild with theories and possible scenarios.